Hello students, I welcome you to today's online tutorial. I am Gracious Abaku. In our last class, I was able to explain to us the meaning of public enterprise. I was also able to explain to us the type of public enterprise, the reason the government go into the formation of public enterprise, sources of their finance, advantages and their disadvantages. I was also able to tell us that we have different types of organizations, of which public enterprise and corporate society happens to be among. Today, we are looking at limited liability company. Here we have some other organizations that, we'll be considering. Now, let's look at our specific objective before we go further. At the end of this class, these are the things that we should take home. The first is to define company. 2, define limited liability company, list type of company, state the features of limited liability company, and lastly, to differentiate between private limited company and public limited company. Company itself is a separate entity from the owner of the business. Now, company is an artificial person. It can stand on its own. Okay. Now, what it means here is that it can sue and as well be sued. So whatever happens to the company cannot happen to the owner of the company. That is what it implies. They are distinct. They are separate. From definition, it says a company can be defined as a legal person or entity created by the association of number of people in accordance with the law for the purpose of a defined object. A company is an artificial person, that is a legal person with a personality of its own. Company is separate from the owner. However, we have 3 types of company or 3 kinds of company. The first is unlimited liability company, companies limited by guarantee, and lastly, companies limited by share. Unlimited liability company. This is a company in whose shareholder will have to use their money or property to pay the company's debt if the company fails financially. So if a company should go into debt under this unlimited liability company, the owner of the company can either sell his properties to raise money in order to pay his debts. So unlimited liability company, the creditor to that company can as well go beyond the business in order to get his money back from the owner of the business. He can go beyond the business by selling the properties of the owner of the business. Companies limited by guarantee. These are companies that are not really formed for profit purpose. They can be an example of an NGO, clubs, like cooperatives, as the case may be. Now, these companies are usually formed by people, the shareholder known as guarantor. So what happened here is that they agree to pay the debts of the company. That is, if the company should go bankrupt or have any financial crisis. So the guarantors here, by the agreements that they have reached, they can actually pay for the debt of the business. So here it says these are companies. These companies are most often formed by non-profit organizations such as club, workers, cooperatives. So this is the difference between unlimited liability company and company limited by guarantee. Then we have companies limited by share. These are companies that the liability of the shareholder to creditors of company is limited to the original capital invested. It can be private or public. Now, let's say a group of people that came together to form a business. Let's say they are shareholders of that business, for instance, and if the business should go bankrupt. Now, what happened here is that the creditor will not go beyond the capital that the shareholders have invested into that business, unlike the unlimited liability company. Now, what happened here is that the creditor can as well go beyond the business, even trying to sell the properties just to get his money back. But in this case, these shareholders, their properties are protected by law. So what happened here is that the creditor cannot go beyond the capital of the business that was invested. Also to see if the shareholders are to pay for the debts of the business, their payment is only limited to the money that they have invested into that business. Then we have limited liability company. Okay, Now, limited liability company, we have about two of them, the private limited liability company and the public limited liability company. From what we have here, it says the liability of the company is limited to what the members have invested or guaranteed to the company. They do not allow member of the public to subscribe to its share. The number of its member ranges from 2 to 50, and the name of private company must end with limited. Examples: Newswatch, Nigeria Limited. Now, under this limited liability company, we have two of them, okay? Now, which is the private and the public. But one thing about the private here is that the liability of the company is only limited to what the members have invested or guaranteed to the company. Now, in this same place, here, the creditor does not go beyond the business in order to claim his money back. So, in private limited liability company, here, they do not subscribe or they do not allow the public to subscribe to their shares. Now, in our next class, we'll be looking at shares, stock, debenture, bonds. Look at them one at a time. Then we'll have a very good knowledge of what the term share is. So, their name of the company ends with limited. They are private limited liability company. Then we have the second one, which is public limited liability company. Oftentimes, you hear names of company that ends with PLC. Now, most of these commercial banks you see around us, their name ends with PLC. Now, this is to tell you that these companies here, they allow the general public to subscribe to the shares. These companies, they are owned by the shareholders, which is those who acquire the share of that company. Therefore, they can be regarded as shareholders, which is to say many people can own that company. Like First Bank, Ss1 Nigeria PLC. These companies, they are owned by a lot of people. Now, it's a company whose securities. Now, securities here, they are financial instruments like bond, shares, stock, which are traded on the Nigeria Stock Exchange and can be bought and sold by anyone. It is easily transferable. So they are required by law to publish their financial position so that investors can determine their true worth. Now remember, this company allows the public to subscribe to its shares. Now, as a good investor, if at all you want to invest in any company, definitely you should have a good knowledge of the company's financial position. Now, this will enable you make your decision whether you have to invest or not. And one of the ways you can invest is by buying their stocks or their shares. Remember, in the next class, I will explain this better for our own understanding. So let's look at that. As we go further, we also look at the difference between the private limited liability company and the public limited liability company. Then we have features of limited liability company. The first one here is ownership. Now, this business is owned by shareholders who may be between 2 and 50 persons in number. So the ownership of limited liability company, they are usually 2 and 50 to 50 in number. So which is to say minimum of 2 and a maximum of 50. Now the objective, yes, is to make profits. It's straightforward. Source of capital. Capital is provided by shareholders in forms of shares. So as they buy shares of the company, they are able to, generate more capital to fund the business. Liability. The shareholders have limited liability in the event of liquidation. What it's saying here is that should the business go bankrupt, should it close, or should it go into debt, here the liability of the business, or when it comes to paying back the creditors of that very business. Now the shareholders here, they cannot sell their properties in order to pay for the business or the debt of the business. So their properties are protected by law. Take for instance, I buy a share in Dangote company, and then for one reason or the other, Dangote's company now, let's say it goes bankrupt. And you know what happened here is that definitely the Dangote company must have, run into debt, probably owing some set of people. And as a shareholder of Dangote company, whoever is going to, claim his money back from Dangote company will definitely, not come to me because I am just a shareholder of the company. Legal entity, yes, the business is separate and different from the owner. The business is distinct and separate from its owner. It can sue and be sued. Management. The private limited company is managed by board of directors. Continuity, there is continuity of business operation, as the withdrawal of debts of a shareholder may not affect the existence of the company. So what happens if one dies, or if one chooses to change his mind tomorrow and said, okay, he or she is no longer going to be a partaker or member of this business? Definitely, it does not stop the existence of the business. Now, let's look at the similarities between private and public limited liability company. The first here is legal entity and status. And they are both legal entity, of which we have explained earlier. What it means here is that the business can stand on its own. It's an artificial person. Limited liability, both companies have limited liability. Continuity, it can exist with or without any of the member. Large capital outlay, both companies are capable of pulling large capital together to set up a business. Now, you know what happened here is that by the time different people come together to put add their resources, definitely they are going to get enough capital to start the business. Management, both companies appoint directors for the proper and efficient management of business. Now we have the differences between private and public limited liability company. Now, shares are not easily transferable when it comes to private limited company. Now, what it means here that shares are not easily transferable is like saying if Mr. A happens to be a shareholder of Nesto Nigeria PLC, he cannot easily transfer his share to someone else. But when it comes to public limited liability company, here the shares are easily transferable. If I am a owner of Dangote Shares Company, I can decide tomorrow to sell it to anyone. But this is not possible. It's not easily done when it comes to the private limited company. Then shares are not quoted in the stock exchange. Of course, those of you that know Nigerian Stock Exchange, now what happened here is that they trade securities. Okay, so what happened here is that when it comes to private limited liability company, their shares are not quoted in the stock exchange. Now, the opposite is the case when it comes to public limited company. Now, it has a minimum of 2 people as shareholders. But when it comes to public, the minimum is 7. Then it has a maximum number of 50 as owners. But in public limited company, it can accommodate as many number of people. Then it does not issue debentures. Yes, debentures here has to do with certificate of indebtedness. Okay, so here a debenture is one of the ways that companies can actually borrow loans or get capital to fund their business. So in this case, that of private limited company did not issue debentures. When it comes to public limited company, they issue debentures. They are not allowed to use PLC, which is public limited company, but such can be used by the public limited company. The public is not allowed to subscribe to its shares. Yes, the shares they are only owned by members of that company. But when it comes to public limited company, as many as possible, they can subscribe to the shares of that company. Even as a student, you can subscribe to the share of that company. And there's every possibility that your parents, one way or the other, might have probably secure some shares for you in some companies. Then we have they are small or medium in size and have limited capital, which is to say compared to public limited company. Since they do not allow the public to subscribe to the shares, definitely they are not going to have a large capital outlay compared to public limited company, because public limited company here they issue out their shares to the general public. It is owned and controlled by those that contributed the capital. Yes, the business is owned and controlled by them. That of public limited company, it is owned by shareholders and managed by board of directors. Now, this board of directors, they are appointed or selected by the shareholders. Now, it enjoys some level of privacy as it does not publish its accounts. That is contrary to that of public limited company. Here, they have to publish their accounts so as to let the shareholders, which are most people with that are shareholders, they did not belong to that company per se, but they became a shareholder of that company by virtue of the shares they purchase. So if, like I said earlier, if you are going to purchase a share of any company, for instance, definitely you have to know their financial position. And this you can know when they publish their annual accounts. Then we have formation of a limited liability company. Now we are looking at some of the steps that must be taken before this company can actually be formed. Now we have about 5 of them here, so I'll just be brief about it. The first here is step 1. It says the promoter, which is to say those that want to form this company or business enterprise. Okay, now they have to do what? Devise a scheme of capitalization, which is to say they have to come up with idea of how they are going to raise their capital. Now, bearing in mind the cost of formation, of course they have to calculate the cost to know what is going to cost them to form the company. Of course, there are assets to be bought and working capital. Assets, those things that they will need to run the business. The working capital, the money that is required for the day-to-day running of the business. Step 2, the promoter is required to secure the service of solicitor to prepare certain documents to be filed with the registrar of companies. The documents are memorandum of association, article of association, and lastly, statement of nominal accounts. Here, you just have to look for a lawyer who is into all this business thing, and then you meet them so that you can make your business one, a legal one. And this lawyer can as well help you prepare documents, okay, that you can present to the right body. You know, we have the body that registers businesses in Nigeria. In our next class, we'll look into that. Now, these documents we have here, the first is memorandum of association, article of association, and statement of nominal capital. This will also look in the next class. So these documents are prepared and given to the right organization. So okay, 3, it said the document are stamped and lodged with the registrar of companies. 4, after going through the documents, the registrar of companies then issue a certificate of incorporation to the company. This gives the company the power to commence business. And lastly, which is step 5, a private company can commence business after receiving certificate of incorporation, but a public limited company cannot commence until it has received certificate of trading. So these are the steps that should be taken before any of this company can be formed. Then let's look at the sources of finance to a private limited company. How do they generate, or how do they source? Where do they get their capital from? First, we have loans and overdraft from bank. Yes, loans, when you borrow money from bank. Overdraft is when you withdraw more than what you have in your bank account. Okay? Then shares raised by shareholder. Yes, shares. You know, shareholder, they one way or the other, the shares, okay, can help them raise the capital of the business. Like I told you in the next class, we'll look at shares properly, so I don't waste time on that. Then we have equipment leasing. Equipment can be leased out by company for money. Now, let's say if the company, for instance, has been in existence and they want to raise more money, maybe to expand, for expansion, they can as well rent out their equipment. And those who make use of it can as well give them some amount of money, which they can add to their capital. Then we have trade credit. You know, trade credit here has to do with buying or purchasing on credit. So what happened here is that these companies can as well purchase some of their raw materials or the things they need on credit, pending when they can pay back. Then we have stocks. Yes, stocks here is a bundle of shares. Is a bundle of shares. So they can as well generate their capital from the stocks. Hire purchase. Now, facilities can be granted to the company to buy and pay by installments. Now, let's say some of the equipment that they might need to run the business, if it's not readily available, they can as well approach these companies to buy them and then pay bit by bit until they can complete the payments. And then we have debentures. Debentures, these are loans obtained from the general public at a fixed interest. Of course, when you borrow money from banks or those who are business inclined, definitely you're not going to pay back the same amount you borrowed. It is going to attract interest. So that is that of the debenture. Remember, I told you debenture is a certificate of indebtedness. Okay, this is where we'll stop today in today's class. So your assignments, you can submit them through the Google Classroom. Maybe in my next class, I'll give you my WhatsApp number if you choose to submit them via WhatsApp. Thank you for giving me your attention to these assignments. There are just two of them. One, to state 5 characteristics of a limited liability company. State 5 sources of fund to a public limited liability company. Now, this question was extracted from WAEC 2005. Thank you so much for listening, your time. Do your best to stay safe, wash your hands, maintain the best health practices so as to keep you healthy and healthy. Thank you for your attention and do have a lovely weekend. See you next week.